Welcome, everyone, to a world where elegance walks hand in hand with brutal rules, where honor is defined by the blade, and consequences can be sharper than any katana. This is Feudal Japan. It's a land of blooming cherry blossoms, beautiful haiku poetry, and a daily routine that would absolutely break most of us by lunchtime. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. 1. Life's path predetermined. The ruthless feudal social hierarchy. Do you think that in feudal Japan you woke up and chose your path? Absolutely not. From the moment you were born, your destiny was already decided by bloodline, by family, and by people who'd been dead for 6 generations. Your role in society isn't a suggestion, it's a life sentence. Were you born into a samurai family? Lucky you. You're now responsible for the blade, the bow, and 10,000 ways to sit properly in front of your lord. Born a peasant? Congratulations! You'll be spending the next 40 years ankle-deep in mud, and your children will too, forever. There's no resume, there's no start your own business. You're either a samurai, peasant, artisan, or merchant. And once you're placed, you stay there. Trying to jump ranks isn't just frowned upon, it's punishable. You don't climb the ladder in feudal Japan, you bow to it. And we haven't even gotten to the eta, the untouchables. These are the people who deal with death, butchers, executioners, leather workers. Society needs them, but pretends they don't exist. They're like ghosts with jobs. Important jobs, but ghosts. Even within classes, it gets worse. Let's say you're a merchant, which sounds decent, right? You've got coin. But in feudal Japan, you're near the bottom. Why? Because you make money without labor, which is considered morally shady. Yes, you're literally too efficient to be respected. Meanwhile, the peasants are taxed so hard on their rice that if they cough up too much, they starve. If they hide some to survive, that's treason. Heads roll often. Samurai, you've got honor, but you're living in constant fear of disrespecting your lord, your ancestors, your tailor, or your sword by accidentally sneezing at the wrong time. Women, you didn't even ask, but no, you're not getting out of this either. Whatever your class, your freedom ends where your father's opinion begins. You'll marry who you're told, obey whom you must, and thank the heavens if you're allowed to learn poetry. So yes, you're born, assigned a costume and a script, and shoved onto the stage of society whether you want to perform or not. It's elegant, poetic, and crushingly inescapable. And that's all before you've had breakfast. 2. Ruthless cleanliness. Feudal Japan's obsession with hygiene. You might think feudal life was all grit and grime, but Japan took cleanliness seriously, painfully seriously. In fact, it was practically a religion, which sounds lovely until you experience it in winter. You begin your day by washing, not in a cozy tiled bathroom with a warm towel and cucumber soap, but at a stone basin filled with ice-cold water fetched from a well or stream. There's no heating, there's no negotiating. You splash your face and arms, shivering as if the ancestors are punishing you for having pause. Soap? Only if you're rich. And even then, it's made from ash or rice bran and smells like something a monk invented as a test of character. In rural areas, the local bathhouse, if you're lucky enough to have one, becomes the heart of hygiene. The communal center is heated by firewood and filled with villagers. And by communal, we mean absolutely no privacy whatsoever. You bathe next to your neighbors, boss, future in-laws, and maybe your landlord, completely naked in silence, pretending this isn't awkward. You scrub first, then soak. Cleanliness is sacred. Dirtying the bathwater? Social suicide. But if you're not near a bathhouse, then you wash what you can when you can. You clean your teeth with salt or a twig. Your nails are kept neat. Your clothes are regularly aired. You do this not because it's trendy, but because being unclean is seen as shameful spiritually and socially. And if you're a samurai, multiply the pressure. Your lord might inspect you head to toe at any time. Dirty fingernails? Dishonor. Wrinkled robe? Disrespect. Too much body odor during a bow? You might not get back up again. Women are expected to smell like cherry blossoms and discipline. Bathing is ritualized. Skin care is practiced with military precision. And hair is maintained in elaborate styles that take hours. All so you can work a rice mortar and still look dignified doing it. So yes, feudal Japan was clean, very clean. But it came at a price: freezing water, endless grooming, and the constant soul-shrinking awareness that someone was definitely judging your foot hygiene. 3. Bushido and the Sword of Fate, the relentless life of a samurai. Let's say you're born into the warrior class, the samurai. Sounds cool, right? Fancy swords, silk robes, poetic sword fights under cherry blossoms. Now let's talk about the fine print. Being a samurai in feudal Japan isn't about swinging a katana and shouting for honor. It's about never, ever screwing up. The entire framework of your life is governed by Bushido, the way of the warrior. A code of conduct so strict, even your ancestors are nervous. You don't live for yourself. You live for your daimyo, your lord. His word is law. His moods are weather patterns. And your job is to serve him with such loyalty that you'd rather die horribly than disappoint him mildly. No pressure? Disobedience? Dishonor. Failure? Dishonor. Raising your voice inappropriately? Dishonor. Looking at the wrong person sideways during a tea ceremony? You guessed it, dishonor. And dishonor isn't something you walk off. It's something you're expected to atone for, usually with your own intestines. That's not a metaphor. That's seppuku, the ritual suicide expected of disgraced samurai. You needle, pull out a short blade, and let's stop there. You get the idea. This wasn't rare. It was a respected, even celebrated way to preserve dignity. Mess up badly enough, and your lord might give you a short blade and a quiet room and say, you know what to do. On top of that, samurai were expected to train constantly: swordsmanship, archery, horseback riding, strategy, calligraphy, poetry, all while maintaining perfect posture and the expression of a man who's never known joy, just a deep sense of obligation. Laughing too loud? Unrefined. Showing fear? Weakness. Getting emotional? Shameful. Your clothes are precise, your sword must be spotless, and your conduct must be so honorable it makes other people uncomfortable. And if you ever raise your sword in anger without cause, insult a superior, or lose a duel, you don't just lose, you lose everything. Being a samurai isn't about glory. It's about discipline, silence, and surviving each day without blinking wrong. So yes, you look good in armor, but you're one eyebrow twitch away from existential catastrophe. 3. Bushido and the Sword of Fate. 4. The peasant's life: sweat, tears, and endless rice taxes. So you weren't born a samurai. No sword, no poetry, no chance of dramatic ritual disembowelment. That's the good news. The bad news? You're a peasant, which means your entire existence is a combination of dirt, sweat, back pain, and government-mandated rice delivery. You wake up with the sun not because you're one with nature, but because the land tax doesn't pay itself. And also, your thatched hut has no doors, no windows, and someone's goat just walked across your bed mat. Breakfast? If you're lucky, a bowl of rice porridge and a side of last week's pickled something. If you're unlucky, it's pretend you're not hungry with a splash of river water. Then it's off to the rice fields, which sound peaceful in travel documentaries but are in reality mud pits designed to break your soul slowly over 12 hours. You plant, you weed, you hope a bandit raid doesn't happen today, and when the sun goes down, you limp home, only to discover that one of your oxen is missing and the village headman would like to speak with you about your grain shortfall. Taxes are relentless. You don't get paid in coins, you pay them with rice. Your family eats what's left, which isn't much, especially if the harvest was bad, or if your lord's nephew accidentally rode a horse through your plot during a military drill. Want to complain? That's adorable. You can't. Talking back gets you whipped, exiled, or promoted to corpse. If you're really lucky, you might become a village elder, which means people still don't listen to you, but now ask for your advice right before ignoring it. And remember, you're legally not allowed to leave your village without permission. You are, in effect, a rice-based prisoner with seasonal ankle rot. Festivals? There are some. You get drunk on cheap sake, dance in a circle, and try not to think about how planting season starts again in 4 days. So yes, you are the foundation of the economy, the reason the samurai eat, and the person everyone forgets exists. And no, you do not get a day off because feudal Japan believes in hard work, generational suffering, and keeping expectations extremely, extremely low. 5. Feudal food, when a meal was a fight for survival. You're hungry. Of course you are. You've been tilling, planting, sweating, and politely not dying since sunrise. Time to eat. But in feudal Japan, meals aren't about indulgence. They're about survival, simplicity, and not choking on a fishbone in front of your in-laws. If you're a peasant, your diet is rice. Rice for breakfast, rice for lunch, rice for dinner. If you're lucky, it's actual rice. If you're not, it's barley pretending to be rice. You might get a turnip or two, some pickled radish if the gods are in a good mood. Meat? That's for the daimyo, or for that one chicken that looked at you funny and mysteriously disappeared. Fish? Sometimes, but it's dried, salted, and sharp enough to file your teeth. Soup? Usually miso, if you can call hot salt water with 2 floating leaves soup. It's flavorful? Yes, in the same way seawater is hydrating. Now, if you're a samurai, you do get better food, but you also eat last after your lord, his guests, and anyone he feels like impressing. That means cold rice, cold soup, and the eternal joy of watching other people eat while pretending you're deeply honored to wait. Also, everything is seasonal, not because it's trendy, but because there's no refrigeration, no global supply chain, and if you don't harvest it yourself, it probably doesn't exist. So when it's winter, that's just nature's way of suggesting fasting. And heaven forbid you get food poisoning. Medical care is optimistic. The local remedy is lie down and think about your ancestors. You'll either get better or become one of them. Food theft is a serious crime. Steal a bowl of rice and you're not getting a slap on the wrist. You're getting a public display of why we don't touch the daimyo's daikon. Tea? It's around, but not like you're imagining. The tea ceremony is a complex performance that's more about posture, etiquette, and existential humility than actually quenching thirst. So yes, meals are sacred, quiet, and respectful, but mostly they're bland, small, and contain at least one crunchy mystery item. And no, you can't complain. Not unless you want your next meal served through your nose. 6. Deadly silence, when words are a slicing blade. You've just finished your modest bowl of crunchy, maybe fish soup. Someone says something absurd. Maybe your lord mumbles a bad haiku. Maybe your village elder misspoke. Maybe your neighbor insists his cow can predict the weather. And for one reckless, foolish moment, you think about correcting them. Don't. In feudal Japan, your opinion is a liability. Free speech is not a concept. It's a fast track to disgrace, exile, or sudden career-ending decapitation. The social hierarchy is rigid, and every word has a weight. Speak above your class, you're being impudent. Criticize someone above you, you're insolent. Make a joke that doesn't land, that's treason adjacent. Even within families, you tread carefully. A son doesn't interrupt his father. A wife doesn't correct her husband. And no one, absolutely no one, questions the daimyo, unless they've always wanted to explore the afterlife via sword tip. Samurai are trained to speak with measured calm, even when furious. A sharp tongue is worse than a dull blade. It's unbecoming. It's dangerous, and it might force someone into the awkward position of having to kill you to restore their honor. Which brings us to apologies. In feudal Japan, apologies are an art form. You don't just say sorry, you bow, you grovel. You possibly write a poem about your shame. You might even send a gift, like a live bird or a decorative comb, while sincerely hoping the person receiving it doesn't decide to disembowel you anyway. And gods help you if your tone is too casual. A misplaced word can be interpreted as sarcasm, defiance, or spiritual rot. Silence is almost always safer. Even humor is a tightrope walk. Laughing at the wrong thing could be seen as disrespect. Laughing with someone important might imply you think you're on their level. And that's how people end up mysteriously reassigned to the far north. So yes, you're free to speak technically, but in practice, you nod, smile, and pray your opinion never tries to escape your mouth. Because in feudal Japan, loose lips don't just sink ships. They sink social standing, reputations, and sometimes your entire bloodline. 7. Feudal fashion, status-coded in every fold. In feudal Japan, fashion isn't about self-expression. It's about making sure everyone knows exactly how far below them you are just by looking at your sleeves. Your clothing doesn't reflect your personality. It reflects your position, your purpose, and whether or not you're legally allowed to carry a sword without getting tackled by a samurai. Let's start at the top. Samurai wear layers of silk robes, sometimes armored, always dignified. Their outfits are carefully arranged to signal status and readiness. The colors, deep blues, earthy browns, and the occasional blood-red flourish. Elegant, ominous, and almost always implying, I have killed a man for less than a fashion faux pas. And of course, the swords. A samurai's daisho, the paired long and short swords, is more than a weapon set. It's a walking badge of authority. Drawing one in public is a last resort. Wearing them improperly is a first step toward being publicly corrected with extreme sharpness. Peasants, on the other hand, wear cotton and humility. Brown, gray, and beige dominate your wardrobe. It's not because they're minimalists. It's because dyed fabric costs money, and you're too busy surviving to worry about coordinating hues. Your outfit says, yes, I work in mud. No, I didn't choose this lifestyle. Yes, these are my only sandals. Merchants wear finer materials. They have money after all. But they're still socially ranked below samurai and peasants, so they keep it muted. Rich, but not too rich. Silk, yes, but subdued. Wealthy merchant families are experts at looking just respectable enough not to get noticed by a bored samurai on patrol. Artisans and craftsmen dress neatly but modestly. Their clothing is durable, practical, and most importantly, unobtrusive. Drawing attention to yourself is considered a personality defect. And then there are women, who must strike a delicate balance between grace, obedience, and wearing 12 layers of folded symbolism. Hairstyles are coded. Kimono patterns are seasonal. And if you wear a color meant for a different festival, congratulations! You've just dishonored your entire household and possibly started a neighborhood whisper war. In short, what you wear isn't just about clothing. It's about rank, ritual, and surviving daily judgment from both heaven and your mother-in-law. 9. Constant death, the breath of fate. In feudal Japan, death isn't a distant concept. It's your neighbor, your coworker, your roommate who never pays rent but is always around. You don't plan for retirement, you plan for your exit. Because death isn't a tragedy here, it's part of the script. Let's start with the samurai. These honorable warriors walk around with 2 swords and a personal death plan. If they lose a battle, seppuku. Insult their honor, seppuku. Spill sake on the daimyo's robe, seppuku, with dramatic background music. And it's not private, it's public, ceremonial, and performed with the same precision as a tea ceremony, but with significantly more internal bleeding. But don't think peasants are getting a longer life. If you're a farmer and the rice harvest fails, you're starving. If your village can't meet its tax quota, your head might be used to make a very stern point. Drought, plague, bandit raid, pick your flavor of sudden demise. And good luck fighting any of it when your most advanced medicine is warm tea and a strong belief in herbal optimism. Speaking of bandits, they're real. They're everywhere. And they don't care that you spent all year growing those daikon radishes. The roads outside towns are so dangerous that people just don't travel unless absolutely necessary. The phrase, "maybe we'll visit your cousin next year," actually means, "I enjoy being alive." If you're a woman, childbirth is a dice roll. Complications? Too bad. Midwives are helpful, but surgical options are mostly pray harder and boil another towel. If your husband dies in disgrace, you might be expected to follow him, not emotionally, but literally, with a dagger. And let's not forget nature itself. Earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, famines. Japan is a disaster artist. Your home could be washed away or buried at any time. And the only insurance policy is a well-tied roof and deep spiritual acceptance. But perhaps the darkest part? You're expected to accept it all calmly. Wailing in fear or fighting fate is considered undignified. A real hero bows before death, composes a poem, and meets their end like it's just another awkward dinner with your clan. So yes, feudal Japan is beautiful, but mortality is part of the decor. 10. The individual is nothing. The family is everything. In modern life, you're told to follow your dreams, be your own person, and live your truth. In feudal Japan, your truth is whatever your clan tells you it is. Individualism isn't a virtue, it's a red flag. You exist not as a lone star of destiny, but as a very small branch on a very important family tree. And your job is to keep that tree from catching fire due to any embarrassing behavior, like expressing opinions or falling in love with a merchant's daughter. Your clan is everything. Your identity, your reputation, your future. It all flows through your family name. You are part of a web of obligations, honor, and expectations so dense it might as well be a spiritual spreadsheet. Even the samurai, proud, honorable warriors, don't fight for themselves. They fight for their daimyo, their household, their ancestors. And if they die, ideally, it's in a way that makes everyone above them look great. Because dying with honor is one thing, but dying in a way that slightly embarrasses your clan, that's the stuff of generational nightmares. Your actions reflect on your father. Your father's actions reflect on your grandfather. Your grandfather's actions may still be affecting how your cousin is treated in the next province over. It's not guilt by association, it's life by association. Want to open a noodle shop because you love cooking? That's adorable. Unfortunately, your clan raises horses, so you'll be brushing hooves until further notice. Express interest in painting? Excellent. You'll be decorating the temple your family sponsors with strict guidelines in total silence. And don't even think about scandal. One poorly timed affair, drunken incident, or public poem with too much sass, and the shame hits everyone. Your siblings shunned, your mother mortified, your great-uncle might have to disembowel himself just to restore the family's good standing. You are not a person. You are a representative, a chess piece, and a liability with legs. But hey, if 11. The war with nature, the brutality of Mother Nature. Let's say you've survived the social hierarchy, the sword duels, the honor system, and the rice tax. Congratulations! Now try surviving the weather. Feudal Japan is a masterpiece of natural beauty. Snow-capped mountains, serene forests, blooming cherry blossoms, and an absolute nightmare of environmental chaos. The scenery is gorgeous. The climate wants you dead. Start with typhoons, massive storms that arrive like angry gods, bringing rain, wind, and the structural integrity of a rice paper wall. Roofs fly off, roads vanish, the rice you spent all season planting floating gently downstream. Then there are earthquakes, sudden, violent, and completely unpredictable. There's no warning siren, no alert system, just a faint rumble, a brief moment of existential confusion, and then your house is sideways. If you survive the shaking, you still have to worry about fires, because everything is made of wood, including your bad decisions. Flooding is common. Too much rain and the rivers swell. Your village becomes a muddy soup bowl. Your crops drown, your animals wander off, your landlord still wants taxes, of course, now with interest. Droughts are just as cruel. Weeks of punishing sun and no rain leave the land cracked and the rice fields dry as a monk's humor. You pray to the gods, you do rituals, you start eyeing the neighbor's well with deep suspicion. And then there's winter, not a snowy wonderland, more like bone-deep cold, thin blankets, and fires that burn out by midnight. Heating isn't central, it's communal suffering. You warm your hands over a clay brazier and hope frostbite isn't fashionable this year. Even volcanoes occasionally join the party. Japan is part of the Ring of Fire, and yes, that's just as fun as it sounds. Eruptions could bury entire regions in ash, lava, or the awkward realization that your shrine is now a rock garden. There's no FEMA, no national relief effort. If your house collapses, you rebuild it. If your food spoils, you go hungry. And if your lord's estate is also affected, well, you still owe taxes. Disaster, after all, is not an excuse. In feudal Japan, nature isn't a background element. It's an ever-present reminder that even the gods might be having a bad day. 12. The Pyramid of Power, a strict chain of command. In feudal Japan, power flows downhill, and so do responsibilities, expectations, and blame. You think you're important? Think again. There is always someone above you. Let's say you're a peasant. Your life is governed by the village headman, who answers to the local samurai, who answers to the daimyo, who answers to the shogun, who maybe, possibly, whispers to the emperor, who doesn't rule so much as haunt the capital in expensive robes. Even the samurai, fierce, sword-carrying enforcers of justice, aren't at the top. They spend their lives serving a lord, waiting for orders, and occasionally fighting in battles they didn't start, over land they don't own, for glory they'll never personally receive. In theory, they're honored. In reality, they're very well-dressed middle management with a katana. The daimyo, those powerful lords who control provinces and armies, might seem untouchable, until the shogun decides they're getting too bold. Then, suddenly their castles are being inspected, their letters intercepted, and their heads very gently removed from their political ambitions. Even the shogun, the military dictator, the most powerful man in Japan, has to keep his eye on the court, the clans, the economy, and at least 4 cousins trying to poison his tea. He rules, yes, but he doesn't sleep well. Meanwhile, the emperor technically outranks everyone but has no actual power. He's like a sacred relic you can't touch but also can't ignore. He blesses rituals, names eras, and occasionally writes poetry. He's also probably broke. This hierarchy isn't flexible. You don't climb it. You are placed, and you stay put like an overly obedient bonsai tree. Ambition isn't admired, it's feared. The higher you rise, the closer you get to a sword in your back. Respect is demanded upward, and authority is enforced downward. Orders are obeyed, not discussed. Disagreements are dangerous. And any hint that you think you're above your station, that's not ambition. That's a death wish in formal attire. So wherever you are, peasant, merchant, samurai, or lord, someone above you controls your... 13. Education and control. Not everyone got to learn. In feudal Japan, what you learn and whether you learn anything at all depends entirely on where you sit on the social ladder. Spoiler, if you're near the bottom, the ladder is mostly invisible and occasionally on fire. Let's start at the top. Samurai children. They're the lucky ones. From a young age, they're trained in reading, writing, swordsmanship, etiquette, poetry, archery, horseback riding, and the ancient art of looking unimpressed at all times. A samurai boy learns how to compose a death poem by 14. You were just figuring out cursive. Their education is rigorous, but with a clear purpose: to serve, protect, and not embarrass the clan. They study Chinese classics, Bushido principles, and how to bow so precisely that the gods take notes. Then there are merchant and artisan families. They get some education, usually math, record-keeping, maybe a bit of reading, but only what's necessary for business. You're not reading Confucius, you're learning how to calculate the cost of pickled turnips in bulk. Practical? Yes. Glorious? Not really. Peasant children, education looks like this. This is a hoe. This is rice. Now start working before the sun beats us to it. Your parents teach you how to farm, how to survive, and how to politely not die in front of the tax collector. Literacy is rare. Schooling is a luxury. The only scroll you'll read is the one nailed to a tree explaining why your taxes just went up again. And girls, unless you're from a high-ranking family, you don't get much formal education at all. You're trained in domestic skills, sewing, etiquette, tea ceremonies, and how to maintain silence while maintaining a household. If you're really fortunate, you might learn calligraphy or poetry, as long as it doesn't distract you from folding laundry with spiritual precision. Education in feudal Japan isn't about personal growth. It's about fulfilling your role without asking questions. The idea of learning for fun would make most elders faint into their sake cups. So yes, knowledge is power, which is exactly why they kept it so tightly controlled. 14. Terrifying beauty. Culture as a dangerous performance. Feudal Japan is a land of breathtaking aesthetics. Everything from the curve of a fan to the placement of a teacup seems designed to soothe the soul and impress your ancestors. But here's the catch. You can and will be judged for doing it wrong. Culture in feudal Japan isn't just art, it's performance with consequences. The way you arrange flowers, pour tea, or fold a kimono isn't left to whimsy. It follows strict codes that have been around longer than your entire bloodline. One misplaced blossom and suddenly you're the talk of the village, and not in a fun, flirty way. Take the tea ceremony, for example. It looks like a quiet, peaceful ritual. In reality, it's a social minefield. Everything is timed. Every movement is choreographed. The guest must sit just so, turn the cup twice, express humble gratitude, and drink in silence, all while mentally calculating whether they've bowed too early, too late, or too enthusiastically. Make a mistake? At best, it's awkward. At worst, it's seen as a character flaw or a moral failing passed down from your disgraceful great-granduncle. Then there's calligraphy, a beautiful form of expression, right? Wrong. It's a test of discipline, personality, and the alignment of your inner spirit. That brushstroke isn't just ink, it's a reflection of your soul's posture. Messy handwriting? Might as well wear a sign that says, emotionally unstable and bad at bowing. Even poetry is dangerous. You don't just write a haiku. You write it in the proper season, on the correct type of paper, using metaphor that references both nature and your emotional landscape without getting too personal, too passionate. You lack refinement? You're spiritually cold. Too clever? You're showing off, and now no one's inviting you to the moon viewing party. Culture here is a delicate game. You participate not to relax, but to prove that you are composed, refined, and deeply, deathly afraid of appearing uncultured. Beauty in feudal Japan isn't effortless. It's a battlefield in silk robes. And if your ikebana arrangement doesn't follow the rules, well, may the gods have mercy on your bonsai.
15. Feudal Japan, where you wouldn't last a day. After all we've seen, the hierarchy, the hygiene, the honor, the endless rice, let's be honest, you wouldn't last a day in feudal Japan. Not because you're weak, not because you're soft, but because this wasn't a society designed for survival. It was one designed for submission, precision, and quiet, relentless obedience. Every moment was a test of posture, of loyalty, of whether or not you bowed at precisely the correct depth while reciting a seasonal greeting in the right emotional tone. If you failed, there were consequences. Public shame at best, ritual death at worst. There were no days off, no just being yourself. You were born into a role, handed a script, and expected to perform it with deadly elegance for the rest of your life. Deviating wasn't seen as brave, it was seen as dangerous. The individual didn't matter. The clan did, the lord did, the land did. If you were a samurai, you carried the weight of centuries of honor and the very real threat of having to recite poetry before slicing open your own abdomen. If you were a peasant, you worked the land from dawn until your spine became a question mark, hoping the weather didn't betray you or your lord didn't. If you were a woman, your life was a carefully managed exercise in grace, silence, and sacrifice. And if you were anyone else, well, the system was designed to make sure you stayed exactly where you were. Feudal Japan was beautiful, yes, breathtakingly so. The architecture, the rituals, the poetry, the art, all meticulously curated. But that beauty came with sharp edges. It required discipline so tight it could snap bones. It demanded respect so absolute it swallowed individuality whole. So no, you wouldn't last. You'd speak out of turn or laugh too loudly or accidentally step over a threshold with your left foot instead of your right. You'd forget to bow. You'd ask a question. You'd want to change something. And that alone would mark you as a threat to the order. But that's the brilliance and the tragedy of feudal Japan. It wasn't made to be easy. It was made to endure.